What's up guys, Meredith with American Muscle, and today we're checking out the MBRP Armor Light Catback exhaust system with the polished tips fitting all 1999 through 2004 GT and Mach 1 Mustangs. Now this is going to be a great option for the Mustang owner who wants some extra volume and that muscle car tone, but wants a system that's not going to be over the top, especially on those longer drives and if you're on the highway a lot if you're commuting. Now the street profile here will give the 4.6 liter some aggression with a richer tone, as you just heard, and I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5 on the Wake the Neighbor scale, considering that the volume here is pretty mild. Now not only does it sound good, it looks good as well with the polished tips if you're looking for more of a classic appearance when it comes to a dual exhaust system, and it's going to be affordable as well if you want a catback system that's not going to completely empty your wallet while achieving those benefits. Now the best feature here by far from this system is the sound. Again, you're going to get that deep muscle car tone and a mild amount of volume thanks to the straight through style mufflers, making this less restrictive and higher flow with minimal to no drone, again making it very comfortable while you're cruising. Now you're also going to get some light burbles from this system that are definitely going to make you smile, and you'll also be getting some better efficiency with this system. Now I wouldn't expect much of a power increase here, but nonetheless, this will help your engine breathe better and be a great supporting mod. Now this will be crafted from a 16 gauge heavy duty aluminized steel construction, being durable and holding up incredibly well in dry conditions. Now the material here isn't completely rust resistant and it's not going to be as polished as a 304, but if you're not necessarily concerned about the look of the exhaust, considering that it's under the car, you're really just looking to save a couple bucks and get the sound and performance out of the exhaust system, then looks aren't going to matter to you. Now the tips, however, will be super rust resistant, keeping that mirror appearance for years to come with a 3.5 inch dual wall angle cut 304 stainless steel construction with MBRP stamped right into the side for some extra style. This will also come with all the hardware for the 2.5 inch mandrel bent piping and factory located hangers for a straightforward install. Now this exhaust will come in at about $525, which is pretty affordable compared to other options in the category. Now one of those reasons being is the mix of materials here with the aluminized steel for the main piping and 304 for the tip, which like I said will hold up incredibly well and makes it a great choice if you don't care for a polished finish underneath the vehicle, considering that it's underneath the car, you're really not going to see it. Now the look of the tips and the sound really make this system shine with, again, that mild volume and rich tone, making it a great option if that's what you're looking for without completely breaking the bank on an exhaust system for your Mustang. Install here will be a 2 out of 3 wrenches on the difficulty meter, taking you about 2 hours to get the job done. Now speaking of the install, one of our customers here has installed this on their Mustang and is going to walk you through what that process looks like step by step. So that is going to wrap it up for me. Let's go ahead and get into it.
Okay, so just reviewing all the tools that we used. We started with some WD-40 as penetrating oil. We used that on the factory bolts where the factory exhaust connected to the H-pipe. We also used the WD-40 on the exhaust mounts to allow us to slip the factory exhaust off and the new exhaust on. We used a 1/2 inch 3/8 inch drive socket here. So here's my 3/8 inch ratchet and a 1/2 inch deep well socket to remove the factory bolts from the flanges on the H-pipe. We then used a combination of the 9/16 deep well and standard depth sockets to install the new hardware on the flanges behind the H-pipe and on the first section of the exhaust pipes. For the exhaust clamps throughout the rest of the exhaust system, we used a 5/8 inch socket. We did end up having to use a deep well socket in some cases just to make sure that we were able to tighten those down. We did also use an adjustable crescent wrench just to hold the bolt while we tighten the nuts down on those. And we also made use of a vice grip to remove the factory exhaust bolts on the flanges. To tighten up the exhaust tips, we did use a 5/8 inch Allen wrench. That was just to install the chrome tips on the exhaust. We did also use a screwdriver here, just a regular flathead screwdriver, to get some leverage to pry off the factory exhaust off the exhaust clamps. That was just to use for some leverage. And we used a standard Sawzall with a bimetal blade to cut the factory exhaust off of the vehicle. And then we also used our 1.5 ton hydraulic jack to lift the car. And we had a set of 4 standard jack stands. In this case, these are 2-ton jacks, one on each corner of the car to lift the entire car up off the ground. Okay, so the first step in the process is to spray all the factory hardware with penetrating oil. I'm using some WD-40 here in this case. So we're going to spray these, and we're also going to spray all the rubber exhaust holders as well, just to allow for an easier removal. Okay, so we've sprayed the flange connections on the H-pipe. Now we're just continuing to spray all of the rubber exhaust mounts, and there are 3 on each side. So 2 of them are behind the muffler here. And again, this is just for easy removal, and I'm using WD-40 to get in there as a penetrating oil. So there's 2 behind each muffler. Try and get this side over here while I'm down here. And then the 3rd one on each side is back by the tailpipe, right in the very back underneath the bumper, right here. This one's the easiest one to get to. Okay, so step 2 is to cut the factory exhaust. Now it says to cut them directly behind the rear axle. There is an option if you don't lift the car, which we've already done. We have it on jack stands here. If you don't lift the car, you'll have to cut it way up above the axle, way up over here in order to remove this. But since we've taken all the weight off the rear wheels and the suspension has been fully extended, we were able to cut in a much easier spot right behind the rear axle. Now, fortunately, there's a little dimple here, which is where I'm going to cut this, and I'm just using a standard Sawzall with a bimetal bit. So I'm going to start cutting here. Hearing protection would be recommended, but we're going to start with this right here. Well, I guess the WD-40 worked on the rubber exhaust clamps. All right, so we've cut off the driver's side exhaust tip behind the rear axle. This is step 2 in the installation instructions. So now we're going to cut off the passenger side. Now what we found on the driver's side was, since we sprayed penetrating oil into the rubber exhaust mount on the exhaust tip, this whole section fell down as soon as we cut it free from the rest of the exhaust. So just look out for that. Again, we're using a battery-powered Sawzall with a bimetal bit, and we're cutting the exhaust off right behind the rear axle. Through. Problem is with this one, it's rattling around so much that it's not quite cutting as nicely the last little piece of it. And as always, safety glasses are recommended. I need a battery. There we go. And then that comes right out there. So that's that second exhaust tip, the one on the passenger side. Okay, so step 3 of the installation instructions is to remove the stock exhaust from right behind where the flanges are here from the factory H-pipe. I'm using my ratchet with a 9/16 socket, and we're going to remove the nuts behind the flanges. There's 1 on each side, and there's two exhaust pipes. So we're going to start by removing those. And previously we sprayed this with WD-40 as a penetrating oil. So that should help to facilitate the removal here. And again, we don't have any winters or any salt spray on this car, even though it's 21 years old. So these are coming off nice and easy. There's the first one. You know what we're gonna do? We're gonna do the two of them facing us first, and then maybe we'll go around to the passenger side to get the passenger side nuts from each of the flanges. Again, WD-40 is working its magic here, coming off nice and easy. Let's try and get these from over here. Don't know if we'll be successful. Oh, you know what? We're gonna need a deep well socket. For this one here, the bolt just seems to be a little too long for my socket. So I'm taking off the other one on the passenger side now, and then we'll come back with a deep well socket for this other one, just to get that bolt off, that nut off of that bolt. So that's 3 out of the 4 nuts. We're gonna come back with a deep well socket for that last one. Okay, so we've got 3 of the 4 nuts off the factory bolts for the factory flanges in step 3 of the installation. We had to switch to a deep well socket, again a 9/16 socket, just because the bolt is protruding further from this last nut over here on the factory flange. So let's get this guy on here and we'll get it removed. Coming right off. Able to finish that one by hand, came right off, real nice. See if I can wiggle these guys a little bit loose. There we go, that one came right off on the passenger side, and loosening up the driver's side, came right off. So, next step is to remove these from the exhaust hangers in the back. We're gonna go back there and we'll do that in a second. Okay, so step 4 of the installation instructions, which is the last step of the removal. We're going to come back here. There, as I mentioned before, there's 2 rubber exhaust mounts that are right behind the stock muffler. So what we're going to do is we're going to remove those, the muffler and the rest of the tailpiece from those exhaust mounts. And then this will be the final step in the removal. We're working on the driver's side now, and then we're going to move to the passenger side. So this is, we've already sprayed these with penetrating oil, which has helped to loosen these up. And now it's just a matter of wiggling these guys off of here. There goes one. This takes a little elbow grease with these ones. This one's just being difficult. But it's coming, just wiggling it loose. Again, the whole weight of the exhaust is hanging by this one piece, so I also don't want it to fall down on me. There it goes. Wow, that worked really well. Now, it's a little bit of a jigsaw puzzle to remove the factory exhaust, but since the car is up in the air, since we do have it on jack stands, we should be able to remove this without much other effort. And there it goes. Just gotta work this last bend there where we cut it before, cut the exhaust tips off, work that last bend around the rear axle. But we were able to do it without any other cutting or modification, which I'm happy to say. We'll make more cuts than we need to. So now we're going to proceed to the passenger side and repeat the procedure there. Okay, so one other thing we didn't remove was the factory bolts to the H-pipe flanges. So I'm going to use a deep well 1/2-inch socket to remove these factory bolts. A little bit to get it started. There we go. Again, we got some WD-40 on here from before, so this should go pretty easily. The kit, the installation kit, comes with new hardware, so we're going to use that new hardware. Actually, okay, so we're taking the factory bolts off the exhaust here, and one thing that I need to do is I'm going to get my vice grip on here to hold this in place as I'm turning this. we're going to do that. Now there's 4 of them again. There's 2 on each side. So there's the factory bolt and nut, and then there's the flange nut that attaches to that to bolt onto the factory flange. I'm going to repeat the process on the other 3. All right, so we've removed 1 of the stock bolts on the factory exhaust, and I'm using that deep well 1/2-inch socket. There we go. We're actually backing it off through this flange nut here, which has a little stop on it, and it seems to be working. If not, on the last one I had to use my vice grips just to clamp onto that to keep that from spinning around. Now the factory flange is welded to the front, to the H-pipe, so we're going to bolt through that with the flanges provided on the next exhaust section when we start the installation. So there's the second one. Now I'm going to move to the passenger side and repeat for these 2 guys. Again, WD-40 works very well, penetrating oil for this. And these seem to be coming off pretty good. Now this one seems to have slipped. I'm going to use my vice grips on the back side here. Clamp that in place. Use this ratchet to take the rest of that off. Third one. And this is that. This is what that looks like. There's the bolt with that factory flange there. That's what we're removing. Last one. A little bit to get it started. Grab the vice grips again just to clamp on to that side. Okay, that completes the removal of all the factory components. Now we're going to move to the installation. All right, so the first step in the installation procedure is to take the driver's side front pipe and slide the new flange over that. So that slides over it here like that. This is going to clamp in to the factory H-pipe using the supplied hardware. Now, this bolt will slide through the factory flange on the car and through the supplied flange here, and there's a washer, a lock washer, and a nut, and we'll tighten that up. We'll do that on both sides of this flange on the driver's side, and then we'll repeat the process on the passenger side. All right, so we're going to start the installation. This is the first step in the installation instructions. So we're going to take the front pipe on the driver's side. We slid the new flange over that pipe, and we're going to mate it up to the existing H-pipe. We're going to slide the hardware in place and tighten that down. They are 9/16 bolts for this, so we're just going to use a 9/16 inch ratchet along with an adjustable crescent wrench to bolt the new front pipe onto the existing factory H-pipe. A little bit of finagling here to get this on there. And once we do, we'll start bolting everything together. We're gonna snug this up, but not fully tighten it until we can get the next few pieces fit in here. That way, we got some room for adjustment. Because there is some orientation to this, and it's not clear which way it should go right now. So we're gonna get on here snug enough, it's not moving around, but loose enough so we can adjust it later. And then we'll come back and we'll certainly snug this up the rest of the way before we're done. Okay, so it's on there. We may need to adjust which way it goes exactly, but for now, we'll leave it as is. And then we're going to repeat this process with the front exhaust pipe on the passenger side. I'm going to take the new flange, slide that over the front pipe, like so. Get our hardware ready to go here. So this is a little interesting. So because the H-pipe is shorter on the passenger side and the H crossover is right here, it's interfering with me getting this bolt into the factory flange. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip this bolt around and have it come through the other way. Shouldn't matter as far as the actual installation goes or any functionality with it. I just don't see any way to possibly connect that as is because of that interference. So I'm going to start by getting the far side installed. If I could get these washers. There we go. Again, I'm going to get this on here hand tight so we have some adjustment available when we put the rest of the exhaust together. Put this inner one on here. I'm going to angle that where I think about where it needs to go to get it directionally correct. And then we'll get everything else hooked up here. Even doing it this way, this is a little bit tight to get in here. But it's doable. There. And now, just need to get the nut in place there. It's easier once you get it started, which we did. Okay, I'm gonna hand tighten this for now, just so it's in place. Maybe loosely tighten it with the wrench here. So we left that a little bit loose just so we can rotate this into position when we get the next sections in. We'll come back, very critical to absolutely tighten those back down once we have the next pieces in. But just for now, we're gonna leave them a little loose so that we can move them around, rotate them as needed, just to get the fitment right for the next section. Okay, so as part of the installation, we've installed the front pipes. We're gonna attach the mufflers next, but the next step is to install the over-axle pipes. And what they want to do is to remove the factory rubber exhaust mounts from the vehicle and attach them to the over-axle pipe. So before we get any further on the installation, we're going to remove these next. Now there's two on each side, driver and passenger, and they're in front of the rear axle. So I sprayed those down with WD-40. Hopefully these come off fairly easily. We're going to pull those off now. There we go, there's one. It looks like orientation doesn't matter, but we just wanted to double check that. There's the second one on the driver's side. Now we're going to move to the passenger side. Again, we're going to spray these down. There's a WD-40. And we're going to remove those from the vehicle as well. The hardest part is getting it started. There's one. There's two. So what I've done is I've left these kind of loose just so that we can rotate them in place. We'll come back and tighten those up. We're absolutely going to have to tighten those up. But the next step of the installation is to install the mufflers. Now, a couple thoughts here. First thing is to install the clamps. Just slide those over each end of the muffler, and then we want to get the muffler oriented in the right position. We obviously want the logo facing up, so MBRP is showing in red the correct way. We don't want it upside down like this. We want it correctly shown this way. When you do that, the seam on the top of the muffler will be on the top. It'll be on the top side of the muffler, so you won't ever see that underneath. Now the last thing, which is very important, and it is spelled out in the installation instructions, is there are louvers. If you look in the muffler, there are louvers. You want the exhaust to flow over those louvers, not into those louvers. So there is a correct orientation for how to install this. It looks like there's a date code stamped onto the muffler here. I don't know if that's always in the same position, but that, in this case, is the back of the muffler. It's not clear to me, there's no other indication about what's the front end, other than to look inside and make sure that the exhaust flows smoothly over those louvers and not into those. So we're going to install the muffler, slide it over the front exhaust pipe, and we have a 5/8 inch socket, and we're going to tighten up this exhaust clamp here. Now I'm going to leave it a little bit loose though, because I may need to rotate this front pipe here when we get the next over axle pipe in. So before I tighten everything up completely, I'm going to snug it up, but I want to make sure that when we come back we can get everything can slip around and slide into place. So that's the driver's side. We're going to repeat that process on the passenger side. Okay, so here's the passenger side muffler. Again, just want to point out, we want the logo facing upright, which means the seam's on the top. Date code is in the back. If we look inside of here, we can see the louvers. The louvers, the exhaust flows over those little louvers, those little bumps in there. That's the front. If we flip this around, you can see those louvers. You can see the holes in those louvers. We do not want this oriented in the wrong direction. So it's very important. And it does say this in the instructions. In figure 5. However, I just wanted to point that out because this can easily be installed backwards without paying careful attention to that. So step 2 in the installation instructions is to slide the clamps over the muffler. One goes on the front and one goes on the back, just like this. And then we're going to bolt this to the front pipe of the exhaust. It's a 5/8 inch nut that we're going to tighten down on that clamp. Okay, so now we're going to install the passenger side muffler on the passenger side front pipe. And again, this just slides over here Again, I do have this little loose because I'm just worried I'm gonna have to adjust these, rotate the front pipes just to get the orientation right. We're gonna come back and we're gonna snug everything up with the installation here. But again, 5/8 inch socket here, just to snug this guy up a little bit. And then the next step, we're gonna put in the over axle pipes, and we'll use these back clamps on the mufflers to clamp those to these pieces. So these will eventually be up here in this orientation more. I just wanna make sure that we're not gonna have to redo any work by loosening these and taking anything off. So I'm gonna leave them loose. We're gonna come back and tighten everything up once we get everything oriented. All right, so step 3, we've removed the factory isolators. That was in a previous video. We've removed the factory isolators from the vehicle, and we're gonna install these onto the over axle pipes. So these, I got some WD-40 on these. They slide right on. There's 4 of them. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to place the over axle pipes over the rear axle in the vehicle. Okay, so next step is to install the over axle pipe. We're on the driver's side. We're first going to feed this over the axle. It's actually very easy to do the way they set this up, so it's a really nice job. We're then going to slip the muffler into the front of this over axle pipe. And again, I've left everything a little bit loose just to allow for some play in the system so that we can get everything into position later. Now the last thing is we've already installed the exhaust isolators, which we took off the vehicle. We've installed those, and now we're going to hang the over axle pipe with the factory isolators back on the vehicle. And I just had to loosen that up a little bit, sliding these guys on. 1 and number 2. And again, to get some WD-40 on these guys slide right on there. That wasn't going on right away. I thought maybe I had the passenger side, but I do have the driver's side. Okay, so I got those factory isolators on there. I'm now just going to tighten up all the exhaust components. However, I do want to get this muffler oriented into the right position and these clamps in the right position. So what I'm going to do is, I'm using my 5/8 inch socket. I'm going to loosen the front clamp to the muffler a little bit. So I just want to position this in the right way here to get both these clamps, to get the muffler centered between the front exhaust pipe and the over axle exhaust pipe in the rear here. So now, I'm just going to tighten up the exhaust clamp here. That's at the rear of the muffler. And there is a hard stop on this, so there is quite a bit of wrenching to do to get that bolted all the way on. Really hold this on there secure. And like I mentioned, we allowed some play up in the front sections, so we're going to go back through and really snug everything up there once we had this piece on. I want to make sure this is nice and snug so we don't have any exhaust leaks. That one's tight. Let's go snug up everything else. Okay, so we're on the driver's side still. Like I said, I left these connections a little loose because I wanted to make sure we had everything oriented in the right position. And I'm glad I did, because I originally had the muffler hanging down a little lower, and this exhaust pipe wasn't quite, the front pipe wasn't quite lined up with the factory H pipe. So what I've done is I've just turned this up just enough so that the new front pipe, and I've just adjusted that so it's perfectly in line with the front H pipe, the existing H pipe. So now that that's in place, what I'm going to do is I'm going to tighten up these bolts here, and I'm going to tighten up the muffler clamp. I'm going to first start in front, and I'm going to tighten up with my 9/16 socket and a adjustable crescent wrench. I'm going to tighten up the bolts on the exhaust flange. Again, I want to make sure that I'm in the right position here, and that everything's held together well. I'm going to tighten up a little bit on each side and work it as we go. I want this nice and snug so we don't have any exhaust leaks. It's very secure there. I'm going to pull the muffler up onto this pipe here. Then we're going to tighten up. The last thing we're going to tighten up here is the front exhaust. Again, this is a 5/8 inch socket on the muffler flange here, on the front end of the muffler. I happen to grab a deep well socket here. For this, you don't need one. For other parts of the install and removal, like I mentioned, needed the deep well sockets in some cases. Could use a crescent wrench, but the ratchet's obviously much faster. Again, tightening this up as much as I can. Don't want any exhaust leaks in the system. One more. I want to do it. There we go. Nice and snug. Whole thing's suspended up there nicely. I think we're in good shape there. Now we're going to switch to the passenger side, and we're going to install the passenger side over axle pipe and attach that to the passenger side muffler. Okay, so now we have the last piece on the driver's side exhaust, which is this section here. We're going to take one of the exhaust clamps, and we're going to clamp it over the flange here. And we're going to mount this, attach this. First of all, we're going to mount this right in the factory exhaust mount back here. Now that's already been sprayed down with WD-40 from before, so that should slide in there real easy. That's the first step, is to get that in there. There we go. And then the next step is to slide this on to the over axle pipe. So now this comes right down around the fuel tank, straight out the back. Next step would be to attach the chrome exhaust tip. But for now, we're ready to just bolt this on. We have the flange in place, and we're going to secure this. We're just going to orient that just so I can get the wrench in here easily. And we're just going to bolt this on again with that 5/16 socket. Go. So just tightening this up here. More turns. Ought to be able to clamp this down nice and snug. So we don't have anything coming loose, of course. Okay, that ought to do it. That one's on. Okay, last step on the driver's side installation is to install the chrome exhaust tip onto the last section of the exhaust pipe. Now this is accomplished. There's a 5/16 hex bolt here that we're going to use to clamp down. Now I have taken my gloves off here because I don't want to get this chrome all dirty from my work gloves. So this just slides on. What I'm going to loosen this up a little bit. Make sure we've got plenty of play with it. So we can get a good fit with these. There it goes, slid all the way on there. So this doesn't stick out much further, although it is bigger and it is much more polished than the factory exhaust. Now what I want to do is I just want to make sure that the logo is in the right orientation here. And then the last thing I need to do, I'm going to start by hand tightening as best I can, and I'm going to use my Allen wrench just to finish tightening this guy here. And this is going to be a little bit of a bear, it looks like. We're going to be going maybe a quarter turn at a time. Try to get a better angle on it here. But because of the way the exhaust mount clamps are, yeah, we're gonna maybe get quarter turn at a time. But we're gonna take our time with that. We want to make sure this is clamped on nice and sturdy. We don't have any issues with that either. Last thing we want to do is lose our chrome exhaust tips. So I'm just gonna snug that up nice and tight. There we go. Let's make sure that's snug and that's not going anywhere. Perfect. All set. All right, so next step is to install the over axle pipe on the passenger side. Now we've already removed the factory exhaust mounts from the car and we've installed them onto the over axle pipe. So we're gonna install this here. We're gonna fish it over the axle, like that. We're then gonna slide it into the muffler. After we get that in position there we go. We're gonna hook on the exhaust mounts here. And there are two of them. A little WD-40 goes a long way with this as well to help slide those on. Now the other thing we're going to want to make sure of is that we don't have any interference with any of these exhaust components, with brake lines, fuel lines, other suspension components, or anything else in the vehicle. It's very important. Very clearly shows that in the instructions. So you may have to adjust some of the clamps to be in the right position. The other thing with the clamps is you need the clamp on the very end of the flange, so it's really pinching down, biting down on the end of that flange. One more exhaust mount here, and we should be good. There it goes. Make sure those are on there. All right, now we have the muffler in position. We're gonna tighten up this clamp here. Just gonna make sure we got everything slid in as far as we can all the way. Make sure we don't have any leaks in anything. Also want to make sure we don't have any interference again with any of these suspension components or anything. Very important that we do that. So I need it hand tightened to start here. Make sure that we have plenty of space there. We're going to tighten these up with our 5/8" socket. Making sure we don't have any interference issues with any of the other components of the vehicle. And as I mentioned, one tip, I just left a little bit of play in the other flanges and brackets. I'm going to go back through and tighten those up fully. But now that we got this last section under the car installed, I want to make sure everything was in the right place. Tighten this guy down. Okay, all set there. Okay, so we're going to install the last piece. Well, second to last piece. We're going to put the exhaust tip on. But this is going to connect. This is the last straight pipe that's going to connect to the over axle pipe. We're going to take our flange, slide that over this last piece here. And again, we don't want the flange way down here because it's not going to be able to bite on anything, it's not going to be able to pinch anything. See, these slots here are designed to pinch in. So when you install this clamp, you want it all the way out here on the flange. So it has the maximum grip, maximum ability to pinch on there. Again, we got a factory exhaust mount back here. We're going to take this, slide this guy in there, should go in real easy. With the WD-40 we have on, so we're going to use that exhaust mount there. Okay, and then back here, we're going to just get this into position to slide it over that over axle pipe. So a little bit of jostling this around, moving some of the lighting as well. Get a good view of this. There we go. And we're just going to slide this on. We need a little more play that way, and we should be able to get this guy on there. Loosen that up. Want this guy to go on there. Nice. Trying to get it into position. There it goes. Work its way up there as far as we can. So we're in a good position to clamp this on. Again, just trying to fit these two pieces together so that they're in there. I want to make sure this straight pipe is nice and straight out the back, otherwise we're going to have an exhaust tip that's at a weird angle. So, I've got that in there. As far as I can get it in there. Check something on the other side. That one goes around that way, around the fuel tank. This one comes down around a little further, just because of the shape of the fuel tank. We're going to slide our clamp up to the end of that like we had shown. And we're just going to tighten this guy up again using a 5/8 inch socket. Clamp this guy on all the way. Again, want to make sure we're clear of all suspension components, brake lines, anything of the sort like that. Make sure that the new exhaust does not interfere with any of those components. Again, we're going to want this to clamp down all the way. It does take some effort. Clamp this down in there. That's a good thing. Okay, that looks good. Okay, last step of the passenger side is putting the chrome exhaust tip on. Again, you're going to want to have the logo facing up. We're going to want to get it in position. Again, it's a 5/16 Allen wrench. Slid that on there all the way on. Looks good. Make sure we get that lined up the right way. Okay, and now just a 5/16 Allen wrench. This side, I'm going to hand tighten as best I can. And we'll clamp it down with the Allen wrench. A little more clearance on this side than we had on the driver's side, so maybe we'll get a half turn instead of a quarter turn each time. But again, just clamping down the exhaust tip. A few more turns on that guy, and we should be good. There we go, all set.
So that's going to wrap it up for my review and the install of the MBRP Armor Light Catback exhaust with the polished tips fitting all 1999 through 2004 GT and Mach 1 Mustangs. And remember, for all things Mustang, keep it right here at AmericanMuscle.com.